Today is Thursday, February 10th. What you know about some of the first assignments American troops are getting in Eastern Europe? They're preparing for a mass evacuation. Also, how anti-mandate protesters are starting to get the response they were hoping for, while also starting to hurt the auto industry. And we'll tell you where new protests are popping up around the world. Plus, you'll soon see fewer magazines on newsstands. This Super Bowl is set to be the biggest one yet for gamblers. And Team USA is going to be bringing some gold medals home from Beijing. Which athletes are making history? Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. The U.S. now has a plan to get thousands of Americans out of Ukraine if Russia invades. As several news outlets report, some troops who were recently deployed to Poland from North Carolina will start preparing in the coming days. They'll set up checkpoints, tent camps, and other temporary facilities inside Poland's border with Ukraine. The troops are not authorized to actually enter Ukraine if a war does break out. But since Poland is the closest NATO neighbor, they'll coordinate evacuations from there. Americans in Ukraine now will likely have to find their way to Poland by land. Right now, there are roughly 30,000 Americans in Ukraine. Officials say if Russia attacks, some of them, as well as Ukrainians and others, will likely want to leave right away. And Western officials still say an invasion is likely within weeks, since Russia has been building up troops and supplies on the Ukrainian border for months now. In fact, 2,000 more Russian combat troops reportedly got to the border just in the last 24 hours. But Russia still insists it does not plan to attack Ukraine at all. Either way, the U.S. has been suggesting Americans in Ukraine get out now on their own before it becomes an emergency. The American embassy in Ukraine has been giving out information, sharing different land routes out of the country, and explaining what requirements other countries might have for visas or COVID-19 restrictions. To be continued. Truckers protesting pandemic restrictions have now blocked a third point along the U.S.-Canada border. And it's starting to really impact the auto industry, which is already dealing with supply headaches. Automakers rely on those routes to move parts and other components between the U.S. and Canada. And because the border crossings have been blocked, Ford, Honda, GM, Stellantis, and Toyota had to halt some production this week. Roads are also shut down in the major Canadian cities of Ottawa and Toronto. These protesters are still upset about COVID-19 restrictions, especially vaccine mandates. And some local politicians in Canada are responding to the demands. Leaders of both Saskatchewan and Alberta announced plans to end vaccine requirements. Still, the protests show no signs of letting up. One of Canada's protest organizers said at a news conference, quote, "I think the government and the media are drastically underestimating the resolve and patience of truckers." And now movements like this are starting to catch on in other parts of the world, too. In France, dozens of trucks and other vehicles started traveling to Paris to vent their anger over vaccination policies. There are also copycat convoys in New Zealand and Australia. And there are talks a large American one could start next month. Protesters are planning to travel from California to Washington, D.C. Right now, they're sharing tips on logistics, fundraising, and other technical support online. Politico says their goal is to clog many major cities with trucks and other vehicles as a way to push back against all COVID-19 restrictions. Stay tuned. Even more states in the U.S. are announcing plans to lift mask mandates. In the past week, 10 states have decided to either do away with or scale back mandates sometime in the next couple of months. Some of the latest ones include New York, which just ended its policy that says anyone who does not have proof of vaccination needs to wear a mask at indoor public places. Illinois is another one that just announced its indoor mask mandate will be lifted at the end of this month. Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Jersey also plan to scrap statewide mask mandates for schools. Elsewhere, it's been a while since any statewide mask mandates have been in place. Still, the CDC says no matter what the mandates are, it's still too early for anyone to actually stop wearing masks. The agency director acknowledged things are getting better, like case counts, but she says the rates of hospitalizations and deaths are still too high to really ease up. As far as the actual mandates go, members of the White House Coronavirus Task Force say it's okay that the statewide ones are going away, but they say local leaders should still make decisions on masks based on things like hospital capacity and vaccination rates in their own communities. For the first time in history, one of the 12 Federal Reserve banks in the U.S. will be led by a Black woman. The Boston Fed picked economist Susan Collins as its next chief. She'll start her job in July, meaning she'll have a vote on financial policy in the second half of this year. And that could be an especially important time since it's likely going to be when the U.S. is in the middle of raising interest rates to deal with inflation. Her stance on the topic is not exactly clear yet. In the past, most of her research has focused on emerging markets, exchange rates, and trade. She's taking over for the former Fed president who retired last year. He was facing a scandal over Fed officials trading securities during the pandemic. The Fed chairman has since overhauled ethics rules to keep senior officials from most trading. All right, we have much more news coming up still, but first, let's take a quick break to thank our sponsor. A new year is always a great time to discover new things about ourselves and our interests, and it's just as important for the kids in our lives to make these same discoveries. With a KiwiCo subscription, your child can discover something new all year long. Kids can discover the engineering and mechanics behind everyday objects, the science and chemistry of cooking, geography and culture from new cultures, and brand new art and design techniques, all through seriously fun, hands-on projects. In addition to getting KiwiCo crates for my son at our house, I bought my 5-year-old niece in a different state a KiwiCo subscription that she is already loving. KiwiCo has something for kids of all ages, and there's no commitment, so you can pause or cancel anytime. Redefine learning with play. Explore hands-on projects that build confidence, creativity, and critical thinking skills all year long. And right now, you can get 50% off your first month plus free shipping on any crate line with code NEWSWORTHY at KiwiCo.com. That's 50% off your first month at KIWICO, KiwiCo.com with the promo code NEWSWORTHY. Team USA has reason to celebrate at the Winter Olympics. 3 Americans won gold medals in their sports, like figure skater Nathan Chen. He's the first American man to win it since 2010, and only the 7th U.S. men's skater to top the podium in history. Also, and in a great comeback story, American Lindsay Jacobellis snowboarded her way to a gold medal, getting redemption 16 years after her infamous stumble. She's known for taking a massive lead in the final turn at the 2006 Games, then celebrating too early and crashing right before the finish line. She still got silver that year, but never took her sights off the gold and finally got it this year. Then there's the so-called Queen of Halfpipe. American snowboarder Chloe Kim defended her title, winning her 2nd straight gold medal in the event. And 3-time gold medalist and snowboarding legend Shaun White stomped his way into the halfpipe finals later today alongside 2 other Americans. That'll be his last Olympic run ever after he announced he's hanging up his board professionally after Beijing. Right now, Team USA has 3 gold medals, 5 silver, and 1 bronze. So with 9 medals total, that puts the Americans 4th in the medal standings. Russia is at the center of another Olympic doping controversy. A Russian teen skating sensation who broke records on the ice Monday reportedly failed a drug test. That's holding up the team figure skating medal ceremony that was supposed to happen Tuesday night. 15-year-old Kamila Valieva led her team to gold and landed a historic quad jump twice. But Russian media says she tested positive for a drug used to treat a heart condition called angina. And it's been banned by the World Anti-Doping Agency since 2014 because it can improve a person's endurance and blood flow. This is not Russia's first doping scandal either. The country is actually competing this year as the ROC, aka the Russian Olympic Committee, because Russia got a 2-year ban from the World Doping Agency for its state-sponsored doping program. The country's name, flag, and anthem are forbidden at the Beijing Games, just like they were last summer at the Tokyo Games. 2 media giants are joining forces to make one of the nation's biggest conglomerates. Discovery and AT&T's Warner Media got the final okay from U.S. regulators for their $43 billion deal. The combined company passed the government's antitrust review and will now be called Warner Brothers Discovery. And that means the 2 companies will blend TV channels like CNN, TBS, TNT, HGTV, Food Network, and Animal Planet, as well as the Warner Brothers Film Studio and streaming services like HBO Max and Discovery Plus. Now the only thing left is to get Discovery shareholder approval, which is expected to go through, so the deal could be done as soon as April. Some of America's favorite magazines will no longer be available in print. Entertainment Weekly, In Style, Parents, and 3 others are going digital only. The move triggered 200 job cuts, which accounts for less than 5% of the company's workforce. The media company that publishes those magazines, Dotdash Meredith, said it's embracing the inevitable digital future. It's no surprise online readership is way up compared to print. In fact, a memo from the company said the online audience for Parents, In Style, and Eating Well magazines went up 40% in the last year. But it's not the last nail in the coffin for print just yet. Dotdash Meredith also runs 19 other magazines like People, Better Homes and Gardens, and Food and Wine, and it'll keep their print versions, and the company is promising to invest in them. Hip-hop star Snoop Dogg now owns the popular record label that launched his iconic career nearly 3 decades ago. Snoop bought Death Row Records, calling it an extremely meaningful moment. A lot of records from that label, like Snoop Dogg's debut album, Doggy Style, are considered classics of the hip-hop genre that defined an era. Other big stars who released music from the label include Tupac, MC Hammer, and Dr. Dre. We don't know how much Snoop Dogg paid, but a source told Variety this is actually just the first part of the deal. He doesn't own the music rights at the label, but a deal for those might be in the works as well. The news comes just a couple of days before Snoop takes the Super Bowl stage on Sunday. He'll perform with Dr. Dre, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, and Kendrick Lamar. Snoop is also putting out a new album tomorrow. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Thing to Know Thursday. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Sometimes we need a little assistance figuring out what could be holding us back in life. Well, BetterHelp is a great way to connect with a professional counselor in a secure and private online environment to figure it out, and most importantly, live our best life. And because BetterHelp is all online, you can get a little help on your own time and at your own pace. Everything you share is confidential, and you choose whether you talk with your counselor through text, phone, video, or all of the above. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with a counselor they think is a great fit. If you're not happy with your counselor for any reason, request a new one. No big deal and no extra charge. It's a convenient and affordable option available for clients worldwide. I want you to start living a happier life today. And as a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/newsworthy. Join more than 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Go to BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, betterhelp.com/newsworthy. Now back to Thing to Know Thursday. Are you ready for some gambling? Americans are expected to smash records this year by betting nearly $8 billion on the Super Bowl. The number of people placing bets is up too. The American Gaming Association says 31.5 million Americans will wager on the game. That's a 35% jump from last year. 18 million of those bettors are expected to bet on apps like DraftKings or FanDuel or with a bookie. The others could be betting in casinos or in casual wagers with friends or in office pools, for example. The uptick highlights the growth in sports betting, especially now that it's legal in more states. 45 million more Americans can rightfully bet this year than last year. Now for some of the most popular bets so far. ESPN says one of the most popular wagers is on Rams wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. scoring the first touchdown of the game. Some other hot bets are over whether the coin toss will result in heads or tails. Other people are trying to guess how close the game might be, and most experts think it'll be close, but that the Rams will win it. But don't count the Bengals out just yet. They were also considered underdogs for the last couple of games and pulled off upsets. Super Bowl 56 kicks off at 3:30 Pacific time on NBC and Peacock. All right, thank you so much for listening today and for always sharing the show. We'll be back with much more news tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.